Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about resilient housing solutions, their costs and their benefits, and how they would apply to the African continent. First, a bit about our firm, Miyamoto International. We're a global engineering firm. We're a people-centered engineering firm, and we focus a lot on reducing disaster risk all over the world. And our objective is really to make the built environment safer for everybody. And when we look at housing, we really take a holistic view of all its risks. We don't just focus on affordability or seismic risk or flooding. We look at it, the whole structure, the whole thing, because housing is a multifaceted asset and it faces many, many risks. And, I think a lot of you today will be talking about affordability, overcrowding, a lot of the risks between COVID and poor housing quality. So I'm going to tackle some of the other risks, such as earthquakes, landslides, and what we would call natural hazards. And unfortunately, Africa, is not immune to these risks. It is maybe a bit safer than some of the other continents, but it's not immune, and its built environment faces multiple of these risks. And we need to make sure to not become complacent and to tackle these risks early on. So first, let's start with seismic risk. Africa is relatively safe in terms of seismic risk, with some exceptions in northern, southern, and eastern Africa. And though earthquakes don't happen very often, they do happen, and when they do, they can be quite destructive. In the late 1960s, there was one in South Africa that led to a dozen deaths. There have been many in Tanzania and in East Africa, and even in North Africa. In the 60s, there was one in Morocco that led to over 10,000 deaths. So it's important to not become complacent and to continue to invest in resilience. The saying is, earthquakes don't kill people, bad construction does. Cyclone risk. I think this one is one that perhaps people are more aware about. And it's really facing Eastern Africa, Southern Eastern Africa. And I think we're a bit more aware of this one because in 2019, a big cyclone, Idai, rocked Mozambique and Zimbabwe, killing over 1,000 people, leaving 3 million people displaced, and causing over $1 billion of infrastructure damages alone. So this is one that we're a bit more aware of. And some of the other risks that follow cyclones can be quite scary as well. When the water is contaminated and soiled, it can lead to disease, malaria, typhoid, and others. So we really, really need to make sure that the built environment is safe. Landslide risk. This one is a big one in Africa, unfortunately. And in yellow here, you can see all the parts that are not arid, that face landslides. And landslides occur when there's a lot of rain and when the land has been deforested. So the soil is very loose. The rain is making things move around, and where informal settlements are built in areas that are not safe. So bad planning, poor construction, deforestation, and precipitation can lead to many landslides. I think we can remember the one that happened in Sierra Leone a few years ago that led to 400 deaths. But overall, they happen quite frequently in Western, Central, and West Africa. And over the past 10 years, we've calculated around 4,000 deaths in the region. So let's not become complacent and let's plan accordingly. And the good news is that resilience can be established early on. Good planning, good construction, having access to risk maps, to local municipal risk maps, can help us establish resilience early on. Because what we've seen in many parts of the world is that even a brand new construction, a brand new home can be destroyed minutes after it is built if it is not built properly. So that's the good news. And the even better news is that it doesn't cost much of anything to establish resilience into a new home. You just have to do it properly from the get-go, and it can cost as little as 2% of the cost of the home. But what we see in Africa, and I like to collect news clips about this, is over and over and over again, we focus so much on the construction of new housing. I sat down and calculated that 41 out of 54 African countries have promised these very large-scale housing developments. 1 million new homes in Nigeria, 300,000 new units in Kenya, 100,000 in Senegal. And that's great. We do need new construction, but we cannot forget to increase the resilience and make the existing construction better. And this is not, unique to Africa. All over the world, new construction, new housing grabs the headlines. But, the qualitative housing deficit is often bigger, if not the same, as the quantitative one. So the difference is the quality of the existing homes that people currently live in needs to be upgraded. We don't just need new housing, we need better housing for everybody. And we mustn't forget to invest in our existing housing stock. So in Mexico, actually, the qualitative housing deficit is even larger than the quantitative one. Same thing in Indonesia. And in Kenya, it's about the same. Unfortunately, in Africa, we don't have much data on the difference between the two. We often see these big numbers, 3 million houses need to be built, but we're not always quite sure if they're new houses or fixing the current ones. So better data can help us also focus our investments. And really, we need tools to upgrade both, to have resilient new homes and resilient existing homes. For the quantitative housing deficit, I think this is the focus of a lot of our conversation over the next few days. But we talk a lot about mortgages, new housing construction. But what we need to add to that are local risk maps. We need to know where landslides are most likely to happen, which soil is not safe to build on, which areas are prone to earthquakes. And based on that information, we can develop climate resilient engineering, earthquake resilient engineering. And even though the codes and the engineering might be good, it is also really, really critical in many parts of the world, including in Africa, to ensure that the quality of the construction is according to code, is according to the design. And there are many new tools that are being developed to help bring down the costs of quality control. We're currently working on one with iBuild to remotely review construction from our own homes and make sure that the homes are built according to code. Now, when it comes to the qualitative housing deficit, we need paths to secure land tenure, of course, access to housing microfinance. But we also need other things like affordable retrofit solutions. We need to teach households how they can make their current homes more resilient to natural disasters. We need to, and this is not always easy because these solutions have often either been too expensive or way too technical to implement. But to give you an idea, and this is data from the US, so don't be scared away from the numbers, these solutions often pay for themselves very quickly. So here you can see the initial cost of a retrofit in California would be $80,000. And then we use a probabilistic analysis saying, okay, what is the probability that an earthquake occurs within the next 1, 5, 10, 50 years? And what would be the damage on the home if that earthquake were to occur? And we can see that within 5 years, the retrofit pays for itself. You save more than you would have spent on damages on the home. So obviously the numbers are scary here. They would be very different for Africa, but this is just to give you an idea of the cost-benefit analysis. In general, as a rule of thumb, we kind of try to say if it costs more than 40% of the home, of the reconstruction costs to upgrade the home, then it's not worth it. Then you should just destroy the home and build a new one in its place. because we do not want these solutions to be too expensive. And when we think of various solutions, this is getting a bit technical, but we want solutions that both increase resistance to earthquakes and to cyclones. So earthquakes, the earth moving, and cyclones, wind, lots of wind, but also flooding. And there are many different types of solutions you can implement. Some are effective against one, some are effective against the other. The idea here, if we are going to really get the biggest bang for our buck, is to increase the strength and the stiffness of the building, to basically just increase the overall resilience of the structure to be resilient to both types of disasters. Fortunately, well, let's say until today, how we would do that is we would build shear walls around, shear columns around the existing masonry. And for this, you would need, an engineer to tell you where to put them exactly. And then it would cost probably a few $1,000s per structure. And some of these structures themselves don't cost more than a few $1,000s. So the cost benefit analysis there wouldn't be that strong. And these programs were very rarely implemented because of the lack of impact for your costs. Fortunately, new solutions are appearing from all over the world that bring down these costs significantly, down to a few $100s, but not just the costs, also the technical assistance required. In the past, you would need an engineer who can often cost a few $1,000s on their own to come in and tell you exactly what to do. Now households, with the use of an app or even a brochure, can implement these simple solutions and increase the resilience of their home on their own. So I'll walk you through 2 of these solutions, but there are quite a few more. The first one is PP band. PP band is, it's like it's a type of band that you put around a shipping container. It's basically a plastic band. It's extremely cheap. We've calculated that it's maybe like $50 to retrofit a whole house. And you weave them together, you put them around the structure, and it basically strengthens the entire structure. It's great for a 1-story structure for the type of small homes you would see in Africa. And this can be easily implemented by the household, by a local mason, and it would cost under a few $100s in total to do. The cost benefit analysis here is very strong. The exact same thing can be done with bamboo. Also, bamboo is green. You can grow it locally, and it's very affordable. This type of retrofit solution has been very popular in Asia. We haven't seen it much in Africa yet, but it's something that we could try out, and I definitely recommend. So to finish, unfortunately in Africa, we see that buildings collapse on their own, even without a natural disaster. Poor construction quality, even of formal, newly built buildings, kill every year. If you combine the poor built environment with an increase in natural disasters due to global warming, to the changing planet we live on, we can foresee a lot of shocks happening over the future. So I can't stress enough that it's not that we must build new homes, and we need to build them in a climate resilient way, but we also need to maintain and upgrade our existing housing stock. We cannot afford to let the existing housing stock crumble. So thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation. I just want to urge you to invest in housing resilience for everybody, because we can't afford not to. Thank you.